The person we interviewed next, and that's of course Shashi Tharoor, who is the second most followed politician on social media right after Narendra Modi, that is, alleges that the orchestrated vicious campaign by paid BJP platoons, he calls them, on platforms like Twitter are making social media dilute its relevance and appeal. So he's really lashing out at folks who are tweeting out there.
In this leg of the Delhi dialogue with Supriya, Tharoor also asserts that opinion polls are not tapping the traditional Congress voters and that the Modi juggernaut is just a well-orchestrated PR campaign. Listen in.
But on the opinion polls, let me start off by saying that we are fortunate to be living in a democracy where voters decide election results and not pollsters. Because the pollsters aren't reaching a lot of typical Congress voters. I can tell you that they're not reaching the Istriwala, they're not reaching the fisherwoman, they're not reaching the vegetable market seller, they're not reaching the nurse, they're not reaching the auto rickshaw driver. These are people who disproportionately tend to vote for the Congress. And they are not being touched or tapped by these polls. Now, if you'll be very honest about it, I'll say that clearly there is a broad indication amongst the polls that the BJP is doing better than last time and we're doing worse than last time. But the kinds of absolute numbers that are being flung about, I think first of all there's no basis for them, and secondly they miss too much of the political and social reality of our country to be a reliable index.
Numbers, but if you go into details, the larger broad political contours of these polls are that this is going to be the BJP's best performance and the Congress's worst. You do not think this is going to be the worst show by your party?
Not necessarily. We did pretty badly in 99, if I remember, 114 I think it was. I think we'll do
better than that number?
I think we'll do better than that.
Do you conceive there is a Modi wave?
Well, look, in the south there isn't. I've just been last 6 weeks in Kerala, and I can assure you there isn't even a Modi ripple, let alone a wave. Indeed, one of the disturbing things about this so-called Modi wave perception is how strongly it's confined to the Hindi-speaking heartland, and the extent to which our national media's own bias in this regard suggests that our nation's imagination is being fractured a bit. What we're talking about is somebody who has certainly managed through an extremely adroit marketing campaign to impose himself and his image on the consciousness of North India and of the North Indian media. I think they have a problem, frankly, that I think they believe their own press releases. When Mr. Modi starts digesting his own publicity to the point of believing in it himself, he may be in for a very rude shock.
You're the second most followed politician in India on social media, and yet if you see the campaign against your party, it is almost vicious, almost vitriolic, if I may. Why is it that social media or people on social media are so against the Congress and so pro Mr. Modi?
Because they're not people, they're BJP trolls, BJP vanguards, BJP platoons of people who are paid to sit there and do nothing but abuse the rest of us. I've seen the change, for example, in Twitter. Since I began 2009, the first couple of years, you basically spent your time engaging with real people. Yes, some of them were BJP sympathizers. That was all right. You knew some were there, some were not, but for the most part, these were regular folks like you and me. You might meet in a living room, instead you were meeting on social media. Today, I no longer enjoy opening up the notifications, as I call the mentions, in which I'm tagged, because 95% of them are just orchestrated abuse, nastiness and viciousness from the BJP's paid army of hacks. And it's a sad abuse of social media that dilutes its appeal and its effectiveness. And because it's so much more difficult to do it in quite that extreme way in Facebook, they haven't yet managed to reduce the appeal of Facebook to that point. But I think Twitter's growth in India is definitely being affected by the extent to which you have this complete takeover of the social media political space, maybe not the other spaces, but the political space by these paid hacks.